He terrorized me as I gave birth. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. I utilize real-life examples of narcissism to help you understand why certain people have behaved the way that they have. I also utilize real-life examples so that the various concepts that I talk about, the manipulations, the dynamic, the responses of the victim, the outlook of the narcissist, take a more understandable and accessible form by linking those concepts to their real-life examples. That is why, when I started this work to talk about the way that me and my kind see the world, the way that we behave, the way that we do things, that I decided against using much of the established concepts and created my own lexicon to make something which was easier to understand, something that linked more to your actual experience, so you could then translate that more readily. I repeatedly use news stories and videos so that it drives home the message to you so you can understand. Furthermore, it provides you with a vehicle that you may well utilize for the purposes of explaining to somebody else. Watch this video. The behaviors that are spoken about are similar to ones that you're experiencing now. This is a description of a narcissist, and the video explains why that person is a narcissist. I want you to understand that's what you're experiencing too. If you were to sit down with the victim and say, you know, he does this and that means that, and he does this and that means that, and these are all the behaviors of a narcissist, that person basically sits there looking bewildered. It's too much for them to take in. But if you can coax them to observe parallels to their own situation with an attached narrative explaining what's going on, not only are they more likely to pay attention, they're also more likely to understand. And thus, videos such as this one, and others similar, and in particular, Watch the Narcissist in Action, are axiomatic with regard to your understanding and helping other people understand. Nicola Anderson wrote in the Times, "Giving birth to her miracle baby was supposed to be one of the most precious and beautiful events in Nicola's life. She had become pregnant despite all the odds after a terminal diagnosis of breast cancer that had spread to her bones. Thus, we have a vulnerable individual who has a terminal cancer diagnosis, but suddenly has the joy of giving birth. But Paul Moody, an Irish policeman at the time, did his utmost to rob the new mother of all the joy of her birthing experience, leaving her terrified and humiliated. Escorted out of the labour ward for threatening her, use of threat, lack of emotional empathy, manipulation, within earshot of the concerned midwife, he went to Nicola's home and stripped her apartment bare in a calculated act of supreme cruelty." Well, in actual fact, it may not have been as calculated as this journalist thinks. The fact is that she did something to threaten his sense of control, and therefore he issued a threat to her while she was giving birth for the purpose of asserting control over her. Rather than being a supportive partner, he threatens her, showing a complete absence of emotional empathy. The midwife hears and ensures that he's escorted out. The removal of him from the ward naturally resulted in him being wounded. He wasn't able to force his way back into the ward, and therefore he sought to assert control by then going, in an act of ignited fury, to her apartment and stripping it of everything that was there. Destruction of property and theft being forms of manipulation driven by his heated ignited fury. Moody emptied the nursery of all the baby equipment that the mother of his child had carefully put together in excited anticipation. Thus, he shows no emotional empathy for her by removing all of this equipment, no emotional empathy for the child by removing things that the child would need. And, in an act of petty malice, he even took the biscuits she had stocked up on to give to visitors coming to see the new arrival. I was absolutely devastated, because this moment I dreamt of was nothing like that, she said of his conduct, which had been so bad that it had forced her to instruct the midwife, "Stay close to me, I don't feel safe." At one point during her labour, Moody told her, "I only came here to watch you bleed to death." Insult. Threat. Lack of emotional empathy, done to assert control. The case of coercive control, in which the disgraced former policeman was jailed in the summer last year for 3 years and 3 months, dominated headlines at the time and prompted a national discussion in Ireland about the pernicious social problem. Now, Nicola has courageously chosen to speak out about her ordeal in a forthcoming documentary, Take Back Control. Mary McDermott, chief executive of Safe Ireland, hailed Nicola's bravery and described Moody as a grotesque exemplar of what coercive control is. "I don't think I will ever get over that," Nicola said, wiping her eyes, as she recalled the cruelty Moody had inflicted upon her at one of the most vulnerable points in her life as she prepared to give birth, thus demonstrating that this individual is utterly bereft of emotional empathy. "But one thing is for sure, I love and adore my son, so if this is what it took to get him, every single thing was worth it." A key witness in the prosecution's case against her abuser, Nicola has chosen to reveal her full identity, although for now she wishes for her surname to be withheld. The documentary is an unflinching account of the abuse she endured, and fundamentally, the strength it took for her to reclaim the rest of her life. One time, after she refused to have sex with Moody, wounding, or possibly challenge fuel dependent on the way she went about it, he threw 2 litres of water over her head before attacking her, ripping up her clothes and spitting at her in an hour-long assault. Ignition of heated fury, absence of emotional empathy, destruction of property, physical assault. Audio of the voice messages sent by Moody, malign Hoovers, reveals a tirade of abuse delivered in threatening tones. Malign Hoovers to assert control over her and draw fuel from her. "Control, control, control. Well, let's see, will we? Let's fucking see," he mocked her in one, calling her a fucking animal. Insult, lack of emotional empathy. A hairdresser who grew up on Dublin's North Circular Road in a family of 10 siblings, Nicola was popular socially and described by friends as someone who would light up a room. In 2016, she found a lump in her breast and was subsequently diagnosed with cancer in both breasts, spreading to her hip, spine, liver, and travelling up along her neck. Asking doctors if she could preserve her eggs because she wanted to have a baby, Nicola was told that there was no time for that. But Nicola vowed to fight it, and in June, tests showed the scans coming back clear. The cancer was gone. "That day was one of the best days of my life," Nicola said, adding that she thought she could get married now and start her own family. She went on a dating app. Of course, I've told you so many times about how dating apps should be avoided. And received a message from Paul Moody, Hoover. Straight away, we hit it off. She told her sister Ingrid that all her dreams were coming true. That she had met a lovely guy who was so nice, and that he was a police officer. But less than 24 hours after meeting her on Tinder, Moody texted a mutual friend claiming that Nicola's name had popped up in a revenue investigation, and she owed thousands in unpaid taxes. Shocked, the friend had told him that Nicola had been diagnosed with cancer the previous year and was as decent as they come. He sent screenshots of the text to Nicola saying, "Your friend just ratted you out that you had cancer." He began to ring her constantly, even when she was at work, lack of boundary recognition, incessant messaging and telephone calls. At this stage, Nicola was still enjoying the relationship, but the first sign of abuse emerged at a friend's baby shower, where, after a minor disagreement, threat to control, he went to Nicola's apartment and smashed it up, ruining her kitchen units and using glass to destroy her wooden floors. Heated ignited fury, response to threat to control, destruction of property. Moody also revealed that he had taken private pictures of her in the bathroom, lack of boundary recognition, and claimed he would put them all over the internet, use of threat. She tried to leave him after that first incident, but he kept showing up, hoovering. He was very good at being the victim. He was an expert at it, Nicola said. Victim mentality of the narcissist. When she met Moody to tell him she wanted to end things and was trying to drive away, he attempted to get her to crash into him. Blame shifting, victim mentality, preventative hoover. A few days later, she discovered she was pregnant. Moody's campaign of cruelty continued, with one message reading, "Honestly, you're better off getting cancer again or killing the child, because, sweetheart, what you have started, I'm going to fucking finish." Threat. After he smashed her bedroom window, destruction of property, she made a complaint to the police but withdrew it, believing nothing would be done. 5 months into the pregnancy, she found a lump and knew the cancer was back. From then on, I needed Paul, she said. Demonstration of emotional thinking. When she went to give birth, she allowed him to accompany her to the hospital, but he tried to pull the car key out of the ignition as she was driving, and so she forced him to get out of the car. Moody took the baby bag she was taking with her, triangulation, and refused to give it back. Once home, she found that he had stripped her entire apartment, and Moody sent her abusive texts calling her a fucking animal. Malign hoovers. My son kept me alive in that moment, Nicola told the documentary. Months later, Nicola was contacted by a police officer who said that the police knew what Moody was doing and asked her if she would like their help. Moody's actions came to light after he had handed his phone over to colleagues who found more than 30,000 messages sent by him to her. Hoovering, incessant messaging, lack of boundary control. Charged initially with 35 criminal offences, Moody agreed to plead guilty to one charge. To other women who might find themselves in a coercive relationship, Nicola warned of red flags that they might choose to ignore. But those flags are everything and more as to why you're going to have to leave this person, she said. An example of a narcissist in action, demonstrating a sense of entitlement as to the way that he behaved towards this person, a lack of emotional empathy, a lack of accountability for his actions, the necessity of asserting control over her, demonstrating a response to a threat to control, the manifestation of heated ignited fury, haughty behaviours, manipulative behaviours, a lack of boundary recognition and various aspects of the narcissistic dynamic. Clearly, a narcissist in action. Given the reliance upon the destruction of property, which is a lesser trait, and the utilisation of threat, which can be seen with both lesser and mid-range, the fact that this individual does appear to have a low threshold on his ignited fury, but was somebody that held down a responsible job, it's likely that he would be lower mid-range, being an amalgam of lesser with the low threshold on ignited fury and the destruction of property, alongside the fact that he was able to maintain some degree of veneer and facade to the outside world, and that he held down a job also. Of course, we don't have full details about him, but that would be the interim analysis of what type of narcissist that he is. But it's quite clear from the information provided that this is another example of a narcissist, although, of course, this isn't mentioned in the article. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.